and then we're going to go live. Okay, here we go. Hey everyone, nice to see you. Happy Monday. We are live again today for the Rockstar Coach Brand Club. I'm Melissa Henry and I'm your host. And I'm really excited today because I get to interview Radiance Harris. She's an award-winning trademark attorney. She's a best-selling author and speaker. And as the founder and managing attorney of Radiance IP Law, she helps emerging businesses protect, monetize, and grow profitable brands with trademarks. She's successfully represented startups and multinational corporations across diverse industries. Previously, she worked at one of the world's largest law firms representing Fortune 200 brands. And during her extensive career, Radiance has been widely recognized as a thought leader in the intellectual property law field. Her accolades include Maryland Rising Stars for Intellectual Property by Super Lawyers, Washington, D.C. Rising Stars for Intellectual Property by Super Lawyers, and Nation's Best Advocates 40 Lawyers Under 40, just to name a few. She's also been featured as a legal expert in a variety of publications, including Forbes and the New York Times. So without further ado, let's welcome Radiance Harris to the Rockstar Coach Brand Club. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm excited to be here and talk
Yes, yes.
trademarks.
Yay. And I want to let all you guys know who anyone who's watching on social media right now, we've got people in the house with us. We've got Laura, we've got Chanda, Lillian, another Laura. There's two Lauras? No, I think one of them is a double Laura right there. We've got Sajad, we got Suzanne, we got Carolyn. Thank you guys for coming. Listen, if you're not in here with us, you should be, because not only do you get to get your actual trademark questions answered today, but you also get a special bonus from Radiance that's only available to the people who are here in the room with us. So if you haven't already registered, go ahead and do so. We're going to be popping that registration link in the chat, in the chats on Facebook and LinkedIn right now. So let's get rolling. All right. So Radiance. So for those of us, and not me, but because I know who you are, but for anybody who is meeting you now for the first time, can you give us the backstory on how you ended up specializing in trademark law for small business owners?
Sure. So the long story short is I started my career at DLA Piper, which is a large law firm. I was in their trademark, copyright, and media group. So I started my career 14 years ago, representing the big Fortune 200 companies, doing trademarks. And it's something that I really loved doing. However, I did notice that a big part of my role was trademark enforcement. So I was often sending cease and desist letters and initiating trademark oppositions and lawsuits against, unfortunately, small businesses. So I realized that there was a lack of education, if you will, for small business owners. They didn't know what a trademark was, didn't understand its importance and value to their business, why they needed to protect it, and then most importantly, why they need to be more respectful of others' trademark rights. So fast forward a few years, I decided to start my own law practice, Radiance IP Law, where I specialize in trademark exclusively for small businesses because I really wanted to help the emerging businesses with big aspirations protect their trademarks early.
Yeah, that's so awesome because I think a lot of people, a lot of times the trademark attorneys want to go for the big, the big companies because that's like obviously the where they're going to get the most money or whatever from it. But I love that when people actually do focus on the small business owner, I just think there's a much bigger need there. So I did read that your vision is to help 1 million women-owned businesses protect their trademarks. Why is that a strong belief of yours?
Well, I mean, it's personal to me. I'm a woman-owned business, and then on top of that, there is the unequal pay gap that a lot of women experience in the workforce, and they often go into entrepreneurship to be able to leverage those opportunities. And so, one way to really increase your revenue is by getting trademark protection. There are statistics that show that businesses who secure trademarks make 3 times to 5 times more revenue than those who don't. If you look at like large companies, 70% of their value for the public traded companies is in their intellectual property. So it's something that's very important to not only increasing the value of the business that you're growing, but also increasing revenue. And I think that's really important, especially for women entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and I think what's also interesting is that women entrepreneurs, like, they'll leave the corporate world to start their own business with the idea of making more money, and then they don't.
Oh,
And then
exactly.
they make less.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So do you see, and this is not really, it's something I'm just coming up with this now because I'm thinking about it. It's like, does it make sense, or hmm, is trademarking something that's specific to your business the way to make more money?
I think it is. What I've just personally discovered is that, and I love working with these kind of clients who kind of like they're at the beginning, but they have such a huge vision for their business. They're just like, this is gonna be good. Like, and that's the thing, sight unseen, right? If you're starting a business, you don't know how it's gonna go. But like that belief that this is gonna be big, I'm gonna make serious money. Let me make sure my ducks are in a row before I even make it to that point that I envisioned for myself. And so that's what I really enjoy. And that's what I've seen, that those who actually go into entrepreneurship with that, like, I'm going to make it mindset versus, oh, this is just a little side hustle or side hobby, they really do end up doing really well. And then having the trademark is just the icing on the cake because now they have that distinctive brand that is legally protected to stand out. And then it also lessens the likelihood of them having some legal challenges later regarding their intellectual property and or having to rebrand, which is also a significant cost and stress.
Oh yeah. I mean, you and I talked offline about my stress about that. So
Right.
the stress is real. So I like that. So you literally wrote the book called Trademark Like a Boss.
I did.
So what made you decide to write it? Like, who is it for, and why did you say this is something that the world needs?
Right. I actually wrote it during the pandemic that we all experienced, and I just remember being up in the middle of the night. Like I know a lot of entrepreneurs, you get your brightest ideas like in the middle of the night when you're trying to sleep, and so that's when it came to me, and it was just like, okay, Radiance, you need to write a book. You're gonna call it Radiance, or you're gonna call it Trademark Like a Boss, and literally, I ended up hiring a book coach. And then I went away for a 3-day weekend and wrote the entire book in 72 hours.
Mm.
And my focus was that, okay, there are a lot of businesses that, can't necessarily afford my services or even working with another attorney, but trademarks are so important that I think that there needs to be a guide for those who understand the importance of value, but might not have the cash flow right now to do it. And so
Hmm.
that's why I wrote Trademark Like a Boss. And it's amazing to see thousands and thousands of people have bought my book and they share it with other people. They've used it to actually, do successfully, pursue the trademark process. They've used it as a guide to then, come and work with me. So like people will read it and they'll be like feeling empowered to go and do it. And others read it and be like, oh no, I'm not doing all that. Let me go hire Radiance. So it's been a great resource for myself and then for those who have had the pleasure of reading it.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. And there is one thing that I noticed about your book, and that is that it's almost like your assumption is that when you wrote it, is that you will get the trademark if you follow my directions. There's not, I don't recall seeing anything in there that says, oh, this didn't work, so here's what you do. Am I wrong in saying that? Because I feel like I,
Well, I will say that I basically took a lot, like, so, I'm a trademark expert. I have all this knowledge in my brain, and I try to concise it into this helpful guide that a 5-year-old could understand. And so I wrote it in that way. So if you don't have any understanding about trademarks or even legal topics, you can read this very easily, very quickly, and understand it. And so I will say I guess I wrote it from a confidence standpoint in the fact that like I know what I'm talking about, but and a lot of people who've read it like are like, oh, this is such an easy read. So I guess you can say yeah. And on one hand, I did write it in such a way, but then I also did make disclaimers. There's disclaimers in there. There's
yes.
also, okay, if you run into an office action, like a substantive office action, like likelihood of confusion or descriptiveness or something really substantial, get an attorney, like get an experienced trademark expert. This is like way too complex. So there are some disclaimers throughout it, just making people aware that it's not guaranteed to be successful, but this is a
Right.
really helpful guide to help you through that
Yeah.
long, tedious process. Yeah.
Oh, so good. All right. I'm glad that you said that because my next question was going to be how would you explain trademarking to a 5-year-old in a fun and engaging way so that they would actually listen to you?
It's interesting you say that because I have a 5-year-old, and I remember something. We were walking in the mall, and we're like looking for Chick-fil-A, and we're walking, and he sees the logo for Chick-fil-A, not even the
Oh,
word, just the logo. He's
uh-huh.
like, Chick-fil-A's right there. And so that is a good understanding. What trademarks basically are a way to distinguish your products and services from your competitors. So when people automatically see that name, that symbol, those numbers or letters, it's automatically associated to you and your business as the source and not your competitors. And so that is kind of the easiest way that I can describe what a trademark is. It protects your brand, so elements of your brand. So it could be your business name, it could be your doing business as name, it could be taglines, it could be a logo that you're using, podcast name, event that you do, annual event that you do. So anything that is distinctive and unique to you that separates you from your competitors.
That's great. Do you have any statistics like what's the return on investment of getting a trademark? I think a lot of people, just as small business owners, we have so many things to invest in that, and we're trying to be profitable. And so we have to take this balance of, okay, when is the right time to get the attorney involved and get my trademark? Like, is it the right time to be spending that kind of money, or should I be doing something else? So, what, how can you frame that for people?
I think it's important to think about, so when you're starting a business, and so right, all the investment that you're making and getting it off the ground and all of that. So it doesn't make sense to build a house on land that you don't own. And essentially that's what you're doing, right? When you're spending all this money. So you spend all this money on a fancy house and you've got it all laid out and designed and it's your dream home, but the land, the foundation you don't own. So the actual owner of the land can come and say, oh, you got to move. And you're like, well, wait a minute. I just spent all this money building this amazing house. And so that's what a trademark does. It's that legal foundation that establishes the legal ownership. So that as you're building that house, you know that I got this land. I'm owning this land. Nobody can come and say, oh, you don't own this, or you need to move your house somewhere else. And so that's why it's so important to get the trademark early in your business, not later. Because everyone, I would say all the clients I work with say, I wish I had done this sooner. I've never worked with a client who says, I regret trademarking my business.
Mhm.
Ever.
Mhm.
So it's one of those where if you're, and I would assume your business is what is your livelihood, it feeds your family, pays your bills,
Mhm.
all these things. And so you want to make sure that that is protected. And so that's what a trademark does.
Well, what's interesting to me too, though, is that oftentimes when people are starting their business, they're not really sure what that name is going to be, the business name, right? So, I mean, it's chicken and the egg, isn't it? It's like, don't we need the time to figure that out? Like, what's the moment? What's that moment when we go, okay, now I got to call Radiance?
Right. So when you're clear about two things, so like when you're in terms of your business name, so a name that you actually love and it's distinctive and unique and it just kind of gives you that inspiration. And then two, you got to be clear about your products and services. So what is it that you are offering under that business? If you're clear about those two things, you're ready to start the trademark process. You don't even have had to have started using the business, or the business doesn't even have to be opened yet, because you can start the trademark process based on an intent to use or start a business within the next 2 to 3 years. And so I would say once you're very clear about those things, like if you have a name that you know and you love, and you'd be pissed off if you found out that, oh man, a competitor's using it or they went and trademarked it before me, that is enough to be like, okay, let me go and make this investment now and protect it and make sure that I'm good. Now, if it's just a willy-nilly name you come up with, you don't care, you don't love it, you're just like a placeholder, maybe you don't make the investment in that. But I would say with the trademark, if it's a business name that you know and you love it and it inspires you, that is when you know, let me trademark this.
Yeah. I think too, though, like from my perspective, so going through this process for myself, what I was doing was I was on the USPTO and I was doing my trademark search. And what I was finding was there were other names that were similar, but I wouldn't have known that they would have this issue with my name. So, would you say then for people listening, okay, I have this name, it's in your book. I get that. So like you have that information in your book. So you can tell people just go look at my book and then I'll tell you how to do this initial step, right? Um, so so is that a point at which you can help them even possibly figure out a better name if that one's if you look and you see that that's not going to be the way you need to go. I think that's the helpful part, I think, for a lot of people because they're going to not really know how to do the search.
Right.
Maybe we could tell them a little bit about that. Maybe that's the way we head in this direction. But what's your sort of advice around that?
I mean, I will say so. A lot of clients come to and have an initial trademark strategy session with me, and so a lot of times that's during the time they have all these different things or different possible names. We do a strategy session. We talk through. Okay, that's distinctive, or no, that's too descriptive. We do like we call knockout search, where you look at the USPTO records. I think the benefit to getting an attorney to do a knockout search versus you doing it is that what a lot of people don't realize when you go on the USPTO website and you just do like the manual search and put in a name, people think, oh, nothing came up, I'm good. That's not always the case because in trademark, the standard for trademark infringement is a likelihood of confusion. So you can have two names that are coexisting in the marketplace for related services. They don't have to be identical for there to be a claim of trademark infringement. If the names are similar enough and the products and services that are offered under the two respective marks are similar enough, there could be a trademark infringement issue. And I don't think, as much as I can write a book and kind of try to describe what that is, only an attorney would know how to identify if there's a potential trademark infringement risk here or not.
Okay. There's a question in the chat about where you're licensed. Maryland, correct? Or are you able to work
I'm
anywhere?
licensed in Maryland and DC, but I work with clients worldwide. As long as they need protection in the United States, I can work with any clients in the United States and internationally who are seeking trademark protection in the United States because intellectual
Mm,
property is a federal law practice. So I don't have to be barred in wherever you live to be able to help you.
okay, sounds great. Okay, and then if you had a trademark treasure hunt for coaches and consultants, what would be the crucial elements that you would advise them to look for when it comes to creating that brand name to ensure that it's trademarkable and protectable?
I would say that the one thing is coming up with a name that's very unique and distinctive. And so I would say that all names are not created equal. There are some names that are much stronger and eligible for trademark infringement, particularly, I would say, so if I had to describe it, so think of like the Google and the Adidas and those types of brand names that are completely invented and made up. Like those
Hmm.
are the names with the strongest trademark protection because they're inherently distinctive. They're so unique that the likelihood of someone else using it is very low. And so those are the best names. And then the second, I guess, level of names would be words that exist in the English dictionary that are being applied to something completely unrelated. So think of like Apple for computers or Camel for cigarettes. Again, it's a word in the English dictionary, but it's completely unrelated to the products and services that you're offering. Those are also really good trademarks. Now, as you go down lower to I guess down the totem pole, as it becomes more descriptive, it becomes a less eligible trademarkable name. There are caveats to that where if you do have a descriptive name, you have to use it for 5 years exclusively and distinctively before you can get trademarked. So it's a lot more nuances the more descriptive your name is. So
Hmm.
it's best to come out with a name that's stronger and more distinctive and unique and unlikely to be already out there. And so that's kind of the first step is coming up with those kind of names. And the second step would be to do your due diligence, do your trademark search, look on the USPTO site, do your Google searches, look in business records, just see what's out there. Is there anyone in my space, in my industry already who has this name or anything similar? Do they already have a federal trademark registration? So I would say like the bulk of the work in the trademark is, or the most important, I would say the bulk, but the most important is that initial due diligence and research at the beginning, because that can make and break your business long term. And then once you kind of have that clarity, then let's go and file that trademark, and so
Hmm.
it lowers the chances of risks or even allows you to identify certain risks that may arise, and then you can come up with a strategy to how to go about it if it does. So yeah.
Mm, that's good. So, what always occurs to me when I hear about this and when I'm thinking through trademarking is that, um, especially when it comes to selecting a name for your company, I think a lot of people, and this is why I want to ask you about it. A lot of people haven't put the thought and effort into some of the areas of their brand, like the overall brand. They're like, oh, this name is really awesome. I want this name. And then, later on down the road, when they really start getting into like thinking about who they're really serving and how they're serving them and, what are the transformations they want their clients to have, then suddenly the name doesn't really work,
Yeah.
right? So I would love to hear about your opinion about how far down the road, like where, like who, how far down the road of really getting into their brand, their underlying brand, should someone go before they start really doing the trademarking process around a business name?
I think it's helpful if you as a small business owner have the resources to invest in like a brand strategist or marketing company that can kind of work through different naming convention. And sometimes, it could be hit or miss because there's some who's been like, I work with a marketing company and here are the names. And I'm like, those are the most descriptive names I've ever seen. But I will
Hmm.
say, I think it's worth the investment to kind of get clear on your vision. This in order to start the trademark process, like I challenge my clients to be clear on their vision. So kind of like at least in the next 3 to 5 years, where do you see your business? Now, of course, it can change. I mean, that's kind of how entrepreneurship is. We're always
Hmm.
constantly pivoting, but at least if we kind of know the direction that you're going, we can look and see if the name is a good choice. We can identify the products and services to include in your application to allow for a little bit of wiggle room in terms of how you might be pivoting your business. So there are different strategies. So I will say, the most important part of this process is strategy. Like a lot of people think it's just about coming up with a name and let me follow the application, let's go. Like just like bam, bam. But strategy is so important before, naming your business, before starting the process, because then that will really dictate where it goes, how successful you are long term, and all of those things. So I will say if you have the means to invest in that strategy before really getting into the weeds of everything.
Thank you for that. I agree, and obviously, and I think that's actually partly what gets people in trouble with a lot of things, not just trademarking, but not really being very clear. And then they
Yeah.
come to someone like you, and they go through this whole and they invest a lot of money with you to help make sure that they're successful. But then later on, what they've got doesn't really make sense. So I appreciate that perspective. Um, let's talk a little bit about maybe some stories. So, can you share a story of a client that you've had who had a very unique or maybe entertaining brand that made the process like really memorable for you? Is there anybody that comes to mind?
There isn't, to be honest. I've worked with, I mean, of course, like thousands of different names. I will say the most satisfying thing about what I do is when businesses, individuals come to me with, hey, this is only an idea right now. Like this is an idea. They come to me at the very beginning before it even hits the market. And so like that whole process of seeing it come from an idea to like actually in the marketplace and like seeing it thrive in the marketplace and to know like I was at the very beginning before anyone knew about this. And so I would say I work that's basically the day-to-day of what I do. So there isn't a particular brand that stands out. I've worked with a really amazing brands over the course of my career, but I will say that that is the part that I love is seeing it come from an idea and then it manifest. It's like the manifestation of this is what I envision and then actually see it come a reality. Like that's the best feeling.
Oh yeah, I can see that. That's cool. Well, how about if you can describe for us how you take care of your clients and ensure the success for your clients as you guide them through the process? Because I am certain there's something that you do specifically, that's part of your brand that really ensures success with when working with you. Like, what's that sort of step-by-step process?
I would say so. The initial process is the strategy. We start with a strategy call. We talk about, what are you doing now? Where do you see your business going in the next 3 to 5 years? So really kind of getting clear on that. So that's first thing. We start with the strategy. What are we going to do? What's the best way forward? Which trademarks do we invest in right now? Which ones do we put in the back burner until later? things like that. What do we apply for? So that's the first step. And then once we're hired, we do a full comprehensive trademark search, meaning we look at to see what is the risk of you moving forward with this name, not only with use, but then also registering with the USPTO. So we do a thorough search, provide a written opinion on our thoughts on whether or not the risk is high or low, or what your chances of success look like. And so based on that information, then the client is able to make an informed decision about, okay, I don't want to take this risk. I don't want to take this. This risk is too high. Let me come up with a new name. And they can make that decision at the early part versus, oh, the risk is low. Let's move forward. So once we move forward, we'll prepare and file the application. We come up with the best and broadest description to ensure that the products and services reflect what they're currently doing or planning to do in the marketplace. So that's a strategy too, is coming up with the best description of goods and services or products and services. We handle the entire process from start to finish. So we're the attorney of record, the law firm of record on their application. So we get all the updates, we keep them informed. We handle any office actions. So you have experience with getting office actions. Office actions are essentially issued in about 70% of trademark applications. So once you file the application, there's like a 9-month window where you're just kind of twiddling your thumbs waiting for your application to be assigned to an examining attorney at the US Patent and Trademark Office. Once they get your application, they'll look it over. They'll see if there's any issues that need to be addressed before you move forward in the process. If there are, they'll issue an office action. So with our firm, unlike a lot of other firms, we handle all office actions, whether it's a quick fix that doesn't require a lot of legal analysis, all the way up to filing and drafting substantive legal briefs and evidence. We handle the non-substantive office actions as well as the substantive. And so that's what our clients hire for us, because they hire us knowing that we pay your team a flat rate and we know that you'll take care of it and you'll keep us updated through the process. And so that's how we work, is we do an all-inclusive flat rate, handle the entire process for our clients from start to finish. And so that's what they hire us for, is making sure that we take care of their application, keep them updated, handle all the heavy legal work, all the way until the conclusion of the process, which takes on average about 14 months.
And what makes your firm and you different from any other trademark attorney out there?
I think what makes me particularly unique is that I actually, from the start of my career, specialized in trademark. So 14 years of extensive trademark law experience. I know this like the back of my hand. I can do it in my sleep. On top of that, former big law firm experience. So I was able to take the strategy and expertise that I learned from advising the big Fortune 200 companies, and translating that to help the smaller businesses become larger companies if that's what they desire. So I would say that big law firm expertise as well. And then thirdly, I would say our flat rate model, our all-inclusive flat rate model is very different from a lot of firms. Most other firms do not offer an all-inclusive. They might do a flat rate for just the trademark search and the filing, and then like, oh, everything else, they're going to hit you with, oh, that's this cost, and that's that cost, and this cost, and then you're just like, wait a minute. And so I found that our all-inclusive model really worked for small businesses, because it's all about budget. Can I fit this in my budget? And so they know, I'm hiring Radiance, this is what I'm paying her. I know there won't be any additional legal fees. There might be additional filing costs that you have to pay the USPTO, but at least you'll know that I pay Radiance for this, I'm going to get what I say I pay for. And I think that's really, those three things are the things that really stand out from, my competitors.
Yeah, and along those lines, so for anyone can you think back on any of your clients and remember a time in which they had like especially difficult registration process, but you were able to get them through that? Like, what was the story, and like, how did you get them through it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I will say there have been a number of clients that we've gotten like a likelihood of confusion refusal. So meaning they're saying that there's another registration on the register that is similar to your clients, and they've issued initial refusal. I've been able to overcome I would say just about all or most of them, simply because I just kind of know the ins and outs and the strategies of doing so. And then moreover, because we did our initial strategy call, because I did a comprehensive search before the process, we anticipated that such a thing would come, and we already had prepared how we get around it should this happen. And so that's how a lot of times I'm able to kind of overcome those things. Now, there are often times now, I would say, especially in the last couple of years, the USPTO has started issuing what's called a failure to function refusal, where they're saying your trademark is like a commonly used word or something and you can't trademark it. So I've gotten a couple of those. But I've also been able to overcome those for my clients simply because I know, I know trademarks, even though we weren't prepared for that refusal, I was able to still figure it out and really bring success for my clients. So I think that it's important that being said, I think it's important, regardless of whether you're seeking trademark support or any kind of other support, to find an attorney who specializes in the very thing that you are seeking. Not a general practitioner, not a general business attorney who does all these different things, but find someone who specializes in the very thing that you need help with. It's the investment is worth it.
Yeah, I would say that for anything you're
Anyway,
going after.
absolutely.
Absolutely. And so specific to that, um, I had a question about that. I'm losing my mind here. But you were talking about the fact that I know what it was. Has to do with the like using a word that is a regular word. So
Yeah.
I have this opinion, and maybe it's wrong, but just having been through this experience up to this point, that the USPTO is, gosh, I probably shouldn't say this, but I feel like they maybe might be a little discriminatory against small businesses and maybe a little bit more open and relaxed about it for larger businesses. I say that because of some of the names I've seen out there. So Apple, that's a an apple is a word. Like, why do you get to trademark the word Apple? Whereas someone like me who might want to just put the word personal into my name, not that they're saying that, but I'm just saying, like, why is that? Why does that happen?
Well, Apple doesn't describe the computer. I think there's a difference between, so those big companies like Apple's and stuff, they have large legal teams. So
Mhm.
they kind of know, like, Apple for computers is not descriptive.
Okay,
But if you're like a brand photographer and you have a name that's brand photographer, that's descriptive of what
got
you're
it.
doing. And so that's the difference, is that if you, especially if you're a small business owner and you're really trying to DIY the process, you don't know that. And so I don't think it's a matter of discrimination. It's just a matter of a lack of the knowledge or the skill set to really know, okay, I can do this or not. Because, you can, I think non trademark attorneys or laymen can read as much as they want about trademarks. But I think when you get into the weeds, especially with the substantive refusals, like the failure to function, the
Mhm.
likelihood of confusion, the descriptiveness refusal, that's going to go over your head. And so I think that's the main difference. It's just not having the nuance or the information to kind of know those differences.
Okay. Well, like I said, I don't know if this is, I kind of feel like it is harder for small business people against larger companies. And I'm not saying they're out to get you, but I do know, like just what you said, they have a whole legal team.
Yeah.
So you're competing against that if you're trying to do this
Yeah.
DIY, is my point. Okay. Cool. So all right, so let's go to the positive side of this equation. It's been like 9 months, a year, and now you got your trademark certificate. So yay, celebration time, right? So what do you do next?
So what do you do next? Well, you want to make sure that you are continuing to use the trademark exactly as you've registered for it. So making sure it's still being used. At this point, you can start using the registration symbol. So the R, with the circle. Now you can use it now that you are officially registered. Now you might want to think about ways in which you can monetize even further. So that's one thing I help my clients too. Now you have a trademark, how can we monetize this? Are there licensing opportunities where you can make residual income? Or can you create a book, or just different ways that you can kind of leverage and monetize what you are already doing? And then thirdly, I would say really getting into thirdly, and then fourthly, getting into enforcement. So meaning monitoring your own trademark, whether it's getting a formal monitoring service to make sure that nobody's filing a similar trademark to yours, and then also just even doing like Google searches every now and then, or Google alerts, setting up Google alerts to make sure that using of, you can kind of be identified with uses of your name just in the marketplace or in the news that you may or may not be aware of. So just kind of keeping your eyes peeled for third party infringement or anyone who could be infringing on the trademark rights that you invested in. And then lastly, making sure you mark on your calendar, what are your upcoming maintenance deadlines? So with a trademark, you can own that trademark so long as you're using it and file the necessary renewal paperwork with the USPTO. So between year 5 and 6 of your trademark registration is when you have to file paperwork with the USPTO saying, hey, I'm still in business. Here's evidence of that. And then you continue on. It's a much quicker process. You don't have to go through the lengthy trademark process again. It's just showing evidence. And then again, at year 10, year 20, and every 10 years thereafter. So long as you can continue being in business and then you file that maintenance paperwork, you'll continue to maintain those trademark rights.
Mm. So is that something that your firm does?
Yes, we
Yeah.
do help
Is that
trademark.
part of the initial thing, or is this like a maintenance fee that you pay
It's
for that?
another, once our trademark, or once our clients secure their trademark, we offer what's called a trademark owners club. And in that club, we handle the enforcement, the monitoring, the maintenance, sending out cease and desist letters, as well as handling the renewal when it comes.
Oh, that seems like a great service.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. Um, Great. So, what are some of well, actually, let me pause for a second because we did have a question in the chat that I do want to talk about. So,
Right.
Carolyn asks, what are the consequences for people using those symbols without actually having a trademark?
Right. So you often will see use of the TM designation that people use, and anyone can use the TM designation. You don't have to have a trademark. You just put the TM, slap it on there. There's no legal significance of the TM designation other than it kind of signifies the people of your intention to trademark, but there's really no like legal strength behind it. Now, with the trademark registration symbol, you can only use that once you have the US federal trademark registration certificate in hand. Not when you start the application process, but only once your registration is finalized. And so it's important to only do that then. If you use it without, if you're using the registration symbol without a federal trademark, I mean, that's considered fraud. So you can be subject to, there's federal penalties for doing that. So don't do it unless you actually have a federal trademark.
Don't do it. We kind of touched a little bit on this, but what are some of the creative ways that coaches and consultants can kind of celebrate and showcase that newly trademarked brand and get more brand awareness as a result? I mean, I have ideas, but I would love to hear what you suggest to your clients. Like, how do you get that out there and how do you make
Yes.
it like this
I mean,
big boom?
yeah, I think a lot of my clients are really excited once it happens. I mean, for starters, just, changing all your marketing materials to add that registration symbol. I think, a lot of my clients have said they feel like their business is more legit now and that clients take them more seriously because they see that registration symbol, on their work and they're like, oh, okay, she means business because she, protected her trademarks. So
Mhm.
that's a good start. But then also kind of just making the announcement, whether it's making the announcements in your newsletter, on social media. A lot of my clients do that, where they announce and celebrate that I've, made this investment, I successfully secured a trademark registration. So I think it's something to celebrate. I think it's something to definitely, share and publicize with the masses because it's an important accomplishment and it's really, I think a really important landmark in the journey of your business.
Awesome. Wanted to put a couple, just shout out a couple people. So Carolyn said she's not planning to use the registration mark, but she might now use the TM and not just for transcendental meditation. So there you go,
Right.
Carolyn. Um, and then get on a call with Radiance so that you can get actually registered. So Lillian said she wants to challenge a trademark application. It's categorized under 1B, date of publication. She's got a lot of information there. She wants to know if she can wait until after the date of publication to challenge it. And she's got some more details in there. Sounds like something that you could just have a quick call with her afterwards.
Yeah.
Does that seem
Sounds
right to you? It's a lot.
intense.
So Lillian, we want to answer your question. It's just that's going to take some time for Radiance to look through that and
Yeah.
really like analyze it
Right,
for
I would
you.
need to pull up the application and look
Yes.
and
Yeah.
everything, yeah.
But I appreciate that question. And you guys, for those of you in the room, there's actually Radiance has a special offer just for the people here on Zoom. So you'll want to catch that at the end when we put that in here. So moving on a little bit here. So selfishly, uh, I'd love to ask, in the world of branding and trademarking, what would be the ultimate dream collaboration between a brand strategist, brand photographer, and trademark attorney? I'm asking for a friend.
Dream. There are a lot of things that can happen. I mean, you have a new client, you have a client who comes in, they're wanting to launch a new product. So they start with a brand strategist to kind of get clear on what's going on, what to name the product, where it's going. They bring me in as a trademark attorney to do the clearance and to make sure the name is good and to start the trademark process. Then they bring the brand photographer in to actually take photos for the actual, marketing and advertising materials. So that is definitely a really strong strategic partnership between the three. And so I can see that, working out, for coaches and consultants and beyond, in terms of even when you're coming up with, I've had clients coming in and say, hey, I want to really build this large brand. I want to be a public speaker. What does that look like? Same thing. Start with the branding strategist, then bring in the trademark. What is the brand that you want to present? And then the branding photographer to take those awesome pictures, to help you, to kickstart your career. So
Mm. So it
yeah,
sounds like we've got some more talking to do.
we got a whole lot of talking. I think it's a wonderful strategic partnership there.
Love
Yeah.
it. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about your own personal brand for a minute, okay? So what was as you were going out there to kind of be the face of your, law firm, right? And I know I've seen you on Instagram and you're different. You're different from other attorneys, very much so. You're very, you have the experience and all that stuff, but I don't think that's what makes you unique. I personally think it's you who makes the business unique. So tell me a little bit about the challenges that you may have faced building out that personal brand as a trademark attorney.
I think, for me, when I started Radiance IP Law, I had the internal struggle of I didn't want to be traditional. Like, I'm not a traditional attorney. I didn't want to be stuffy. Like, I gave away all my suits. So I just knew coming into this, like, I did not want to be that attorney,
No.
with the blazer on. And so that was something I did from the beginning. And I think it's evolved a lot since then, where I've even become a little bit more laid back than I was at the beginning. Because it's still, even though I was against having the corporate feel, I think my firm had in some elements like more of a corporate feel, is much less now. I think it's more personable. But what I will say is that when I first started Radiance IP Law, it'll be 8 years for me, in November. I was like, well, let me leverage all of my skill sets. So I know trademark, I know copyrights, I know contracts, I know business formation. And so at the start of it, I did all of those things. So I did all those things like the first 2 to 3 years of my business. Around 2019, I was like, maybe I should just niche down to trademarks. Like, people come to me for trademarks, people know me for trademarks. Let me niche down to that. Yeah, I have all these other amazing skill sets that I have that I can support people with. But in terms of how I wanted to brand myself, I really wanted to focus on trademarks. And so by niching down and really like tailoring on trademarks, my revenue actually increased once that happened. Really niching down and focusing. And so I've really focused on that, since then. A year ago, I rebranded myself as Radiance, the trademark goddess. And so they're just different. I think that your business continues to evolve, in different ways. But I will say that that was the biggest thing, is like making that jump to just focus on really one area of law and really making that like code of radiance for trademarks. Yeah, I have all this other stuff I can do. And we can talk
Yeah.
about that behind the scenes. But I do trademarks, and that's
Yeah.
what you're looking for.
But not even just like what you do. It's like how you put yourself out there. If you
Yeah,
guys have to go to her Instagram feed, it's different from any attorney you've ever seen, honest to goodness. And yeah, and I think that that speaks to people getting to know you, and then your uniqueness really comes from you and how you are showing up.
absolutely.
So, yes, you are niching for sure in what you're doing. But I think it's more, that's just what I observe as a personal brand strategist. I see that, and I think that's what's really, it's not just the niching down into the what you do, it's the standing out and standing up as the face of your business
Right.
and who
And
you
think
truly
different.
are.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Authenticity. Yes.
100%. I love it. So bravo on that one.
Thank you.
So we're kind of getting here to the wrap up phase. I can't believe we've been talking for 45 minutes now about this. I would love you guys if there's anything you want to put in the chat here as a question for Radiance right now. We're going to wrap up. If you want to stay in the room and ask her specific questions, off air, we can definitely do that because I'll stop the recording and all of that. But one last question I want to just ask you is what haven't I asked you about that you wish I had?
I think you really asked the really key questions. So I don't think there really is anything that I would add add to what you've
So
covered.
I'm super thorough.
Super good. On it. You are on it.
Sajad wants to say a couple of quick things. They're going to be quick, right, Sajad? Uh,
Yeah.
in support of you. Okay. Go ahead.
The less you know, the more you think you know. So there was a guy that had a food truck company, and it was 250,000 for the food truck. When I was practicing law, I said, "Let me review the contract. 2 hours is $600." He didn't hire me to do that, and then he had a bad contract. He was late behind on his first month payment, and they took his truck. So if you think you can do it by yourself, you can't. It's just a lack of knowledge. It's better to hire Radiance. And then there's statutory damages versus you have to prove it damages if you don't protect your property. If you protect your intellectual property, you automatically get a whole lot of money. If you don't protect your property, you got to prove how much money you lost.
Yep, I agree.
And
Especially the
Lily,
high radiance part.
right. Higher radiance part. I agree with that too.
I love it.
Well,
Uh-huh.
both Radiance parts. I was selling on the back end Radiance.
I love it. I love it. Lillian had some other things to add here. Lillian, we're going to save the chat too, so that when we know when you're going to get on a call with Radiance, you can, she'll see this information because I think it's real specific to detailed stuff. You know what I mean? Okay, and so let's go ahead and Radiance, as I mentioned earlier, she has something really special for everyone who's in the room with us right now. So why don't you talk about it, Radiance? We just put it in the chat, but let's talk about it.
Yes. So we talked a lot today about strategy, the importance of doing a strategy. I do offer 30-minute trademark strategy sessions over Zoom where we can really get into the nitty-gritty about what your business is, what your vision is, and really develop a comprehensive trademark strategy for you, as well as conduct initial searches to decide whether or not this is an investment that you should pursue at this time. So if you're interested in scheduling a trademark strategy call with me, you can you get $100 off if you book a call by tomorrow with myself through my website. There's a special code that we drop in the chat
Mm-hmm.
that you can use to get $100 off a 30-minute trademark strategy session with me.
Awesome. And we'll also put the link out there connected to this video when we post that. Um, they won't get the special code though. So just
Right,
saying. Huh.
right.
So So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Radiance. I so appreciate you coming on. I think this information is fantastic. I think people, hopefully everyone here, agrees. We understand what trademarking is, the importance. We know how we're going to go about it, and all of the things. And now that you do understand that importance, but if you are someone who hasn't clearly developed that brand, like Radiance I were talking about, we should talk first so that I can help you figure out what areas you're going to need to get clear on so that when you do work with Radiance, it's going to be an amazing process and very streamlined and efficient. So with that said, I think Carolyn's going to pop in the chat here. Just grab a call and basically when you put in the notes section of this call, just put in RCBC trademark. So I know why we're meeting. And then I guarantee that when we get through that call, you guys are going to know exactly what you need to work on. Okay. So thank you guys for coming. So appreciate everyone in the room and everyone else who's listening live. And next time we come together, it's going to be on Monday, the May 22nd. And we're going to be talking LinkedIn, leveraging up your LinkedIn with Deanna Russo. So that's one not to be missed. There's a lot of questions I have specifically about LinkedIn. So, but anyway, Radiance, thank you again for coming on the show, and we will see you all next time.
Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.